U.S. actor set to make a comeback as SAG-AFTRA strike reaches settlement. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐿. Health crisis from Gaza, genocide continues to escalate despite worldwide calls for ceasefire. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐝𝐚. Muslim students left without support in the wake of UT campus disruption. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐚. From the trenches to the present, Armistice Day, celebrating the heroes among us. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐿. UK Minister 𝐮𝐲𝐬𝐬𝐿 is sacked for the second time as she makes controversial and hateful comments about protests over Gaza. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐤𝐬𝐽𝐻. Convicted murderer of Russian journalist slain 17 years ago gets pardoned. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. F1 owner promises $1.7 billion in revenue in upcoming Las Vegas race whose track construction left residents fuming over traffic congestion and disruption. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. U.S. Supreme Court takes step towards ethical transparency. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. Final statements delivered in Canadian trial over fatal attack on Muslim family. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐤𝐬𝐽𝐻. Nepal's TikTok ban sparks cries over freedom of expression. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. Residents evacuate as Iceland's volcanic eruption becomes imminent. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. France issued an arrest warrant for Syrian president over chemical attacks. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. How Netflix's abrupt cancellations are killing original content. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐿. How the Hispanic majority reshaping Texan terrain beyond cowboys and football to a diverse cultural mosaic. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐤𝐬𝐽𝐻. Taylor gets nod of approval from Jesus. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. Finland's defensive move against undocumented influx sparks geopolitical concerns. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. Voices for Peace, ex-Israeli soldier pushes for an end to settler violence in Gaza. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐽𝐻. The alarming rise of hate speech on social media against Muslims, Jews, and Palestinians. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐤𝐬𝐽𝐻. Semi-final showdown. Cricket World Cup's best battle for glory. Witnessing resilience, the reality of giving birth in war-torn Gaza. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐿. President Biden nominates first Muslim judge for the U.S. Court of Appeals. By our correspondent 𝐮𝐸𝐬𝐬𝐿. For more updates, visit our website at AmericanMuslimToday.com. Follow us on our social media accounts on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter.